everyone, welcome back to my next video. Today we're going to continue talking about heat. I did an introductory video just about an overview of the kind of things we're testing and why. So why don't you watch that first? If not, you can just jump in right here. We're looking at electric blankets. A lot of you don't want, can't have, for various reasons, propane in your rig. But you want it, you're in a cold enough place, you need a heat source, something to add heat to your body. Well, there are two ways to do it. If you buy a propane heater, which you're not going to, or you wouldn't be watching this probably, that heats the whole inside of the rig. So it's putting out a lot of heat, and you have to spend a lot of money to create all that heat. A better way is to just heat your own body, and that's what an electric blanket does. It doesn't rely just on the body heat you're creating. It adds heat into you. So these are I've got four different blankets here that add heat, create heat, give it to you. One is 110 volt. This is a 110 volt blanket. And then over here we have three 12 volt blankets. They don't have as good a reputation, but that's just a risk you take. And if it gets through, if you got one of these and it kept you warm through a winter, I would consider that a real success. The most expensive of them is $40. Okay, so we'll start with a 110. This is obviously going to put out enough heat. I don't think there's any question about that. 110, these things put out a lot of heat, and I don't think there's any question. But the question will be, how much power does it draw? Really, that's going to be the question for all of these. Can you afford to run the electricity? So this is just a light fleece blanket. Looks pretty good quality. I can feel real solid. Uh, I got gray. I thought it might not show as much dirt, but who knows? I didn't have a lot of choices in color. I bought this at Walmart. You can buy it off of Amazon. There'll be an Amazon link below. And all the prices I'm going to give on you on every product, all these products are current prices. This was, I write it down. It was $63, but that'll change all the time. So, and I think it's twin. The twin is 62 inches by 84 inches, and that's pretty big. That's large. Um, it's a Sunbeam micro plush heated blanket, and it's washable. You can disconnect this, as you can see. You can disconnect the whole power supply, and then you can throw this in the washer. That's a plus. None of these 12-volt blankets can go in your washer. So this is going to draw 10 amps an hour. So if you just use it in the evening, again, I'm not talking about using these overnight. If you have the solar, you can. But what I'm mostly talking about is the evening, your evening hours before bed. So the sun goes down at 4:35, between 4:30 and 5:30, and even later in the northern parts of the country. And so you're not going to sleep, probably bed to sleep till 10:30 later. Some of us not till much later. So you got 5 or 6 hours every night where you're in your cold van, and it's not very fun sitting in the cold. And you got your lights on, of course. You're not in the dark, but it's cold. And so this could work, and I'm hoping this will work. This might become my new source of heat. So it'll work. It'll work or it won't. I'll tell you how much it draws. 10 amps is a very, very high draw. If you ran it for 4 hours every evening, that's 40 amps. That's a lot of power out of most of our batteries. Okay, next up I have three 12-volt blankets. This is a RoadPro, an actual RoadPro band. I've owned a lot of RoadPro products. They're sold at truck stops everywhere. I've never been to a truck stop that didn't have some RoadPro products. In fact, they may have this blanket in a RoadPro store. This one is $40, $39.99, and it's 58 by 42 and a half. That's not real big, and it weighs 2 pounds 1 ounces. To me, the more it weighs, the better, because that's either more wiring or more blanket, and either one of those things should equate to more heat. This claims 4.6 amps at 55 watts. It has an 8-foot cord. That's good. But now we're down to about 5 amps. And that's half of the 110 blanket. And so then you are in the realm of a single AGM. If you don't have much other power draw going on, might do it. Of course, you're only using these in the winter when your power in source is greatly reduced. Okay, the next one is a Stalwart brand. And this one is $25. So This is $15 less, a lot less. It's actually heavier, and like I said, to my mind, the heavier the better. That means either more wiring or a heavy blanket. This is 2.8 ounces. The RoadPro was 2.1 ounces. This is 7 ounces heavier. I got to tell you, my very first impression is that's a pretty good blanket. This is a cheap no-name. The name is S Beauty, and it's not anywhere on it. It's just a no-name. So this is made in some factory in China, and they're sold under a million names. This is by far the lightest of them all. This one weighs 1 pound 5 ounces. And so, no, 1 pound 1 ounces. It is a full pound lighter than either one of the others. And so, yeah, that means less blanket, less wire. It's got to be one or the other. I think the packaging is all the same on all of them. So this is a very light one. That implies to me that it's not going to keep you very warm. Put out much heat or then keep you warm. On Amazon, they all say that you need to put another blanket on over it because you'll lose all the heat you're creating. These are so thin that they're just going to go right. The heat's just going to escape right out of it. So you can see it's just a standard cigarette lighter plug. This one has a high, low, and off. This is the only one that had a high and a low, and that might be an advantage. All right, so we're going to test the RoadPro 12-volt electric blanket. It's plugged in now. It's pulling 60 watts off of a completely full battery, and it is 10:25 in the evening. It's late. So here's the final results of the RoadPro 12-volt blanket comforter. I loved it. It was fantastic. I covered myself with my puffy blanket, and I was just toasty warm. I was very, very pleased with the outcome, how much power it used. It's used 20% of my battery, and it's now 12:45. It's $40, which I think is pretty ridiculous. It was the lightest of them, and it's plugged into my bluetti again. You can see the bluetti is at 100%, and it's pulling 53 watts, which has been very steady at 53 watts. That's just slightly more than 4 amps an hour, so that's good. So this is the last of the 3 blankets. It's the Stalwart. It's the blue one. It was actually the heaviest of them. It draws the least amount of power, 45 watts. I would say that's true because it putting out the least amount of heat. It's acceptable as long as you put a blanket over it. It kept me warm just fine, no problem. But yeah, it's noticeably less heat coming out of it. So now we're going to look at my conclusions on 12-volt blankets. Are they a valid alternative to heat in your rig? If you, for whatever reason, you can't have heat, will these work for you? And if so, which one will work for you? Well, let me say I see them first as a system, a total system. Not one of them by themselves would do it. So you're going to need a hat or a hood and a coat. I've got a sweatshirt on. I think a sweatshirt is my first step in the cold. I put a sweatshirt on. I put long johns on. I put a base layer on my legs and my upper body and a sweatshirt and a hoodie or a hat. So that I'm warming, again, remember, we're warming ourselves, local heating rather than the entire rig, because sometimes it's just not practical to heat the whole rig. On my feet, I'm always wearing Baffin booties. If you've been watching my videos for any length of time, I've been talking about this pair of Baffin booties for as long as I've been on YouTube. I do recommend a good pair of dry wool socks that you wear inside them. But a pair of wool socks and your feet are going to be warm. I don't worry about heating the floor. I worry about keeping my feet warm, and these will do it. Now, I was only, one of the problems I have is my van is well insulated. So if it gets warm during the day, it will carry its heat a long time overnight. I'm really amazed how long it will carry its heat. Uh, so maybe it wasn't as difficult for me as it would have been. It certainly wasn't as difficult if you were at 0 Fahrenheit. What's that, around 10 or 15 below in centigrade? Um, then yes, it would have been a completely different story probably. But I can tell you, when I was in Flagstaff, and it was in the high teens every single night, I stayed comfortable all evening with just the 12-volt blankets. Now again, looking at them as a system, you have to have a blanket on top of them. They won't keep you warm by themselves. So the blanket I used on top of them was either this Arcturus wool blanket. It's heavy, it's very large. I could double it up and it would just be incredibly warm. So I did find this to be really good, but something I found to be far better was this puffy blanket. This is a Guide Gear puffy. They call it a double puffy, and I believe that. And I love this thing. It's $57 and some change, so it's $58 right now. This is incredible. This puffy blanket over one of any of these 110s, and I am toasty warm. Again, down to the teens, wearing a coat and a hat. I was just toasty. I found all the 12-volt blankets to work really well. So my verdict is an absolutely yes. They will keep you warm on a cold night. Now again, cold was about 15, 19 degrees outside. I don't think the inside of my ambulance ever got anywhere near that cold. So you got to bear that in mind. If you're in a car, it's a very different story. If it's 19 degrees outside, it'll be 19 degrees in your car because you're losing it all. You're not retaining any heat into the evening. So I still think this would work. I think I certainly think this and the wool blanket and a 12-volt underneath it, and you are toasty warm all night. Your body is warm, um, and even though you are still bundled up, you've got to be bundled up, and you're probably going to be wearing gloves as well because your hands will start to get cold. All right, so let's look just at the 12-volt blankets themselves. And the first one I tested was the Sunbeam 110-volt blanket. It's a great blanket, as you would expect. It's enormous. I mean, it is huge, and it's drawing 110. You have to run it off an inverter. It draws 120 watts of power, which is 10 amps off of your batteries. More than that, because the inverter is wasting a certain amount of power with you turn on the inverter and nothing plugged in, and it's wasting power. And then when you plug in an item to it, it's wasting power again. So it's probably more like 12 amps is a realistic amount that's coming out of your batteries. So it's going to take a lot of power. That's double of any of the 12 volts. The 12 volts all draw at least half of that, and sometimes quite a bit less. So the most out of any of the 12 volts was 5 amps, and the others were 4 amps. So this is the S Beauty, which means it's just a no-name thing they threw a name on out of China, probably out of the same factory as all the others, but they threw their own weird name on it. It's S Beauty. It drew 53 watts. It has a high-low setting, which is pretty nice, having a high-low setting. 53 watts is about 4 amps, slightly more than 4 amps. It was by far the thinnest and the lightest of all of them, put out the least amount of heat. But with the get out gear on top of this being the least amount of power of all of them, even on high, was still enough. At $40, it's too expensive. I would not buy this because the other one is better and it's even cheaper. The next one up, it was the Stalwart, and it was actually quite a good blanket. Let me tell you the details on it. It was $25. It was the heaviest of all of them. It was the lowest draw at 45 watts, slightly less than 4 amps. So if you have this on for 5 hours in the evening, that's 20 amps. This is probably the one that most of you should buy. It was $25. It's on Amazon. It's good and warm. It put out an adequate amount of heat. All in all, it worked really well. I could recommend this to you without hardly any hesitation at all. Now this is the one I like the most, and I'm keeping, and I'm going to recommend to you. It was the RoadPro Again, it has they all have pretty good sized cords. You can buy these all day at truck stops. RoadPro is a trucker brand, and every truck stop I've ever been in sold a full line of RoadPro products. That's one of the reasons I buy RoadPro products. They're a proven product. It really is. If you've ever bought the cheap fleece throws, that's what the Stalwart is. It's just a cheap fleece throw, and you can buy those at Walmart for $4 or $5. And it's like two of those sewn together, so it's double those. It's by far it was the warmest blanket by itself. It drew 60 watts, so that's more. That's 5 amps. It's still half of the 110, but it's more than either of the others. So all in all, what am I saying? I'm saying they work. They do work. They will keep you warm as long as you put a warm blanket on it. I like the double puffy, $57. So think of it this way, a double puffy, and this is about $100, and that's replaced your propane heating system as far as I'm concerned. So if you have these, you got your coat, you got your hat, you got your hoodie, and one of these, you're set for cold as far as I'm concerned. Now, what if you're in New York or you're in Wyoming or Montana and it's 20 below? No, it's not doing it there. You're not staying warm with what I've described. These are moderate temperatures, teens and above. And even then in the teens in a car, yeah, you're going to be pushing this to its limit, but it's doable. It's doable. You're still not going to be terribly, terribly comfortable. If it's 10 degrees in your car and this is what you're using, you're not going to die. You might not get your best sleep you've ever had before, and sleeping's another whole nother thing. This is being comfortable in the evening until you go to sleep. I like them. That's the bottom line. What's up, Bob? You talking, you talking, you talk. What are you saying? I like them. I'm keeping one. I like it enough. I have solar coming out of my eyeballs. I'm going to take the space for this RoadPro blanket and keep it. If I weren't keeping this one, I'd keep the Stalwart. I do recommend propane heat if you can at all possible to get it. Your life is just more comfortable if you keep your area warm. Okay, I talk a lot, don't I? I'm sorry. I have this information. I don't want you to have half-assed information. I want to be as accurate to you as I possibly can be. That's my goal, so that you make as an informed decision. I don't want you to throw $40 away on this and then find out this is crap. This isn't going to work for me. I want you to know who it will work for and who it will not work for. If you're below zero, this is not going to be adequate. You're going to have to find another system. If you just, this is all you can afford, $100 on this isn't a bad way to go. So there you go. I hope you got something out of this. This is my honest opinion. I'd buy the RoadPro 12 volt, a puffy blanket to go over the top, and I would think it would work very well. So if you got anything out of this video, like us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, and we'll talk to you later.